In this section, we're going to begin the final build of our multi-domain blog application. First, we'll set up our local development environment to work with multiple domains. Then we'll scope our data and CSS on a per domain basis. We'll build out the content of our blog and add SSL to the workflow. Finally, we'll integrate the articles using both dynamic imports as well as Redux and Redux Thunk loading of blog content via an API. Lots to cover in a short amount of time, so let's get to it. In this episode, we're going to start setting up our blog to work locally with multiple subdomains, pointing at multiple blogs within our one app. The multi-domain approach is used very often for all manner of white-labeled or skinnable applications. We're going to start where we left off in the last section. If you need to catch up, check out local domains. So we want to create multiple domains in our development environment. We currently use localhost 8080, but it'd be cool if we could use something like link.local, where local is the top level domain and link is our domain name. This is a good development stand-in for something like link.com, which would be the name of our blog in production. So how do we get custom top level domains or custom domains in general on our local box? Well, the secret lies in etc hosts. And my host file looks like this. If you're in Windows, your host file should be located in system32 drivers. Alright, as you can see, there's already one domain set up to point to our local IP address. So let's set up another. We can do link.local. We can do zelda.local. We can do really anything else we want. These all have to be manually hand-coded into the etc/hosts file. So if we go back in, we say link.local. Right, we're not running our server. npm run dev link.local, and now we have a new custom domain name. Zelda should work as well. You can see it takes a little while because it needs to update the DNS cache in the browser, but on second load it loads pretty quickly. Not too bad. Of course, anything else works as well. Alright, so this is the simplest possible way to set up domain names in your local environment. The one downside is, as I said, the speed, but also you have to include these one at a time. So you couldn't do something like this. That would not work. So if you're happy with this and want to move on, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to go into a little more complicated version, setting up local domains using DNSMasq. So skip forward if you want to, but that's next. Alright, DNSMasq. So first, let's get rid of this stuff for now. When we reload our browser, we see that the name server is not resolving. Okay, so the simplest way to install DNSMasq is using Homebrew. There's also a Windows installer for DNSMasq. We're going to do the Homebrew way here, since I'm working on a Mac. So you're going to want to say brew install DNSMasq with a Q. So that's going to download a bunch of stuff pretty quick. It gives us a nice way to start it and stop it. I'm going to give you a better way to start it so that we can use logging and see our domains resolve in real time. So the next thing we're going to need to do is create a directory inside of etc. We're going to use sudo to do that. So we're going to do sudo make directory etc resolver. We'll want our password. Next, let's create a file, sudo touch. We'll put it there in resolver, and it'll be local, which is the same as our top level domain. So if your top level domain is XYZ, put in XYZ. Of course, XYZ is an actual domain, so that might not work very well. So local works the best. Dev is apparently also a real top level domain, so that doesn't work quite as well. All right, so we created a local file, and now we just want to put one line in that local file. So we'll do a sudo echo, and the one line is name server, and then our familiar IP address, and that's a string, and we're going to pipe that into that file we just created. So resolver local. All right, just that one line. Oh, it doesn't like it. That's unfortunate. All right, so let's open that up. All right, so the one line name server 127.0.0.1. That's it. So when you save this, it's going to ask for your password again. So now we got that. Cool. Now let's open up the DNSMasq file. That's going to be in user local etc DNSMasq.conf. So for our purposes, this config file is perfect. We have the local domain set up. We have a lot of basic ideas here, including should it read from the etc hosts to get some domains. In our case, we say no, because we just want to use DNSMasq. We set up an address with the top level domain pointing at its IP address, and then we listen for requests on localhost. So if you make changes to this, you're going to want to test the config file to make sure that it's valid before you run it. So what we do is we do sudo we're going to run our DNSMasq executable with the flag test. And if it comes back syntax check OK, this file is cool. So let's break it and make sure. Bad option at line 6. Awesome. All right, so now let's run this thing. To run it, you're going to say sudo user local sben DNSMasq, couple flags, no daemon, and log queries. So this terminal is now a DNSMasq terminal. Now let's run our web server. You can see every URL it's hit. You know, some of these are from iTunes, even though I don't have iTunes running. It's very interesting. But you'll notice localhost doesn't show up. So what about link local? Oh, link local shows up. There it is. What about Zelda? Zelda's good too. So now, what if we wanted, instead of Link or Zelda, if we wanted someone else? Ganon has a domain now. Very cool. That means that we have everything on .local is just available. Pretty nuts. All right, so now we've really got something to split up our app into a multi-domain super site. It's just a couple more things I wanted to make you aware of. If you don't want to run DNSMasq in the foreground, you can always use sudo brew services start DNSMasq, and that'll start it in the background so it still works. So we can stop it with the opposite, stop DNSMasq. Sometimes the browser caches the last rules it got, so when stopping DNSMasq or starting it again, it's probably best to restart the entire browser, not just a tab, but the whole thing. If it's giving you the same result or it's spinning, just restart the browser. Alright, so there we have it. 2 ways to set up local domains on our system. Apologies to Windows users for the lack of detail, but I hope at least I imparted some understanding of how to test your DNS configuration. We did not add any new code to our project, so there is no branch for this episode. Next, we're going to use these newfound domains as we build out our blog app with a proper article and a unique theme or skin for each of our domains. Stick around, it's about to get crazy.